Hello everyone, there's so many people already on the chat. Everyone has already been chatting about there's people already been talking about if we should be vegan. Just say it, I'm just going to say hi to some people. Hi Izzy, Kieran's back, Phoebe's back, Maddie's back, Angel is here, Japan Maple is here, Pumpkin Master is here, Get Out of the Freezer, Heat On. Kieran is here, Max is here. Whoa, there are so many people already here. Hi guys, thanks so much for coming. This is an Aim High Live, so if this is your first time joining, then I'm going to talk about science. Today I'm going to talk about, not that one. Today I'm going to talk about, should we all be vegan? But first, does anyone know what's going on here? What the dickens is going on here with this situation? But yeah, if this is your first time, then I'm going to talk about science. You can ask questions whenever you want. If you are watching on Facebook, then you're going to miss out on all the chat. So go here so you can see it all to aimhigh.co. And if you're watching on YouTube, I think you miss out on some things as well. I don't know. But yeah, thanks so much for joining. And yeah, today is going to be all about, should we all be vegan? I've just realised the chat's been flowing so quickly that my thing's not keeping up with it. Right. Fish cannon. Yes. Okay. So otaku. I'm a bit dyslexic, so I'm really bad with new names. Otaku Kiri is saying why hello there. And Jasmine's saying we forgot about the hair element. Oh god, I remember the hair element. There was a live we did ages ago about hares all running in different directions, because there's a thing called the Parliament of Hares, when a hare, which is like a kind of tall rabbit, loads of hares kind of gather together and stand in a circle. Anyway, we're not going to talk about that now. First, we're going to talk about this. So a few people have said what this is. For those who don't know, this is a salmon cannon, which is basically a big tube that people feed salmon into, because obviously nowadays we've dammed up so many of our rivers that when the salmon are swimming upstream, they reach a huge dam in the way, and so they can't get over it. And whilst we've tried inventing these things called salmon ladders that go around the edge of the dam to help the salmon climb up the dam to get to the other side so that they continue migrating upstream, because for those who don't know, salmon all migrate up to the top of the river in order to reproduce. But yeah, so we tried to make these things called salmon ladders, where they're supposed to climb up beside the dam, but they don't use them. They just get stuck at the bottom of the dam, most of them. And so some cunning people invented the salmon cannon. Do they ask the salmon for permission? No, they just shove them straight in. So it's basically this tube that it's just like a suction tube, and these people like spend all day frantically just feeding salmon into this tube, and they just go boop, 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 and they're just like flying out the other side. And if anyone would like to get me a present for my birthday, it's coming up, and a salmon cannon is exactly what I would be after. Just so you'll know. And what are people saying? Miz is saying, does it hurt the salmon? We don't think it hurts the salmon. No, it's very soft on the inside. The tube, it's very soft lining, and it's also over very quickly, and also they're lubricated very 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 well, because they are salmon, and so they're slippery. Kieran's saying, what about bears? Does this affect the ecosystem? Because bears obviously depend on salmon to eat a lot, and so bears will stand in a riverway, and they'll just collect salmon as they jump up the stream. But the salmon populations around the world have been absolutely plummeting, partly because of farming and endless people eating them, basically, and partly because of dams, just pure human meddling. And so bear populations are also really struggling too, because there aren't as many salmon to go around as they used to. Okay, so today is going to be about, should we all be vegan? Should we be vegan? Now, right, okay, so first of all, I just want to ask you a question about if we were to split up all the land that is used to produce food, then we can produce about 80%, and this is a very rough thing, but it's a good rule of thumb to give you an idea of how food is made. We can produce about 80% of the food that is needed to feed everyone with how much of the land? How much of the land approximately do you reckon it takes to make 80% of all the food we need? To make 80% of all the food we need, how much land do we need? And also, to make 20% of the food, how much land do we need as well? What do you guys reckon? And Maddie, Maddie's saying, I'm sorry I'm late. Don't worry, Maddie, it's fine. And Marion Williams is saying, watch Artificial by Patagonia. I am going to talk about Artificial at the end. Great film by Patagonia called Artificial. If you guys want something good to watch about the salmon industry, it's fantastic. I went to the premiere in London, and it was just absolutely astonishing about how bad the salmon industry is. I could not believe it. Maddie, don't worry, you haven't missed too much. So yeah, just to welcome anyone who's joined late, this is an Aim High Live, so you can ask questions whenever you want. We're going to do the topic today of should we all be vegan? And if you came late, all you missed was salmon cannons firing salmons up above dams. And now we are talking about, so now we're getting into it. We're getting into the meat of it. Should we all be vegan? And I've just asked the question, how much land approximately, and it's very rough, but about how much land do we need to create 80% of the world's food? And so there are loads of guesses coming in. We got Jeff saying about a fifth, Maddie's saying about 15%, Miz saying about 7%. Okay, so this is all the same kind of numbers. Everyone's thinking about 15%. It's around, so 15 is a good number. Usually what we say is about 20% because it's a good rule of thumb, and it's a way that people like to kind of orient themselves, is that about 20% of the land is needed to make about 80% of the food. Now, why is it that we make almost all of the food with a tiny proportion of the farmed land? And what is being made on this 80% of the land? What food is being made here? What do you guys reckon? And while you answer that, I'm just going to turn off that. There's a heater in the background and it's so hot in here. I will be back in one sec. Whew, it's hotter than the universe. Okay, so Japan Maple is exactly right. It's saying 80% is all of the meat. Exactly. So this is all the animal farming. So all the animal farming is taking up all of this land that's producing a tiny amount of the food, and then the remainder of the land is generally making your crops. Does anyone know what the word is for like crop farming? It's a really beautiful word. It's one of my favourite words. Although my favourite word is... What? Does anyone else have a favourite word? Is this a thing that people have? Throw in your favourite word if you've got one. I'm kind of interested to know what people's are. My favourite word is apricity. Apricity. Which, if you want, you can look up what it is. It's a pretty weird word. But yeah, so exactly. So Japan Maple Izzy was saying arable. Nice. So this is your arable farming when it's crops. So yeah, crops taking up 20% of the land, making 80% of the food. Animal farming takes up 80% of the land and makes 20% of the food. Now, it's not so... The argument about being vegan is really complicated. It's not so simple. So I'm going to try and go through as many different things as I can. Oh, get out of the freezer's favourite word is plum. Great word. Whose was pobbles? Is that a word? I haven't heard that before. But yeah, so the argument of should we or should we not be vegan is really, really complicated. And I'm going to go through a few things with you. Now, something I want to do is I want to show you this video. And this is a video by Friends of the Earth, which is a great organisation who I was going to run this like campaign with trees. We did this thing in the autumn called Reforest Earth, where we put 1,000 trees outside the UK Parliament, for those who haven't already seen it. And we basically gifted one to all of the members of Parliament in the UK. And then a couple of months later, the Conservative government raised their tree planting plans from 11 million up to almost 1 billion. And that was really fun. But anyway, we're planning the next one with Friends of the Earth. But Friends of the Earth made this incredible video about how land is used in the UK, which I'm going to show you a bit of now. So here we go. I'll grab it from here. Okay, so I think Japan may... No, somewhat... Jeff just asked if I am vegan. I will also answer that question later on. Right, here we go. So... this is, in fact, I'm going to try something. This is a bit of an experiment. I haven't tried this yet, but I'm going to, if I do this, will you guys get sound? I'm going to try and give you sound. If I hit this. Okay, firstly, can you still hear me? If you can still hear me, then that's good. Give us sound. Okay, everyone can still hear me. Great. Now, hopefully, you'll also be able to hear this.
We walk through 22 kinds of land that are gone in a blink. Houses and gardens occupy 5% of the UK and 5 seconds of our walk.
It works.
We spend 6 seconds.
Now, the catch of this is that I can't hear what they're saying, so I can't hear exactly what they're saying. But if they haven't already explained it, this will tell you. This is basically a slideshow of the whole of the UK in 100 seconds. So all of the land is split up into 100 seconds. Let's go.
Crossing natural grassland and wander for 7 over sheep grazed moors and heathlands. Peat bogs, which are carbon stores, are something else. Together, they cover 9% of the nation. And for 10 seconds, we're in the woods, and there's no place I'd rather be. For 27 seconds, we walk through fields of crops. Half is fed to livestock. In June, we mostly grow wheat, barley, oilseeds, peas and beans, corn, oats, and vegetables. Our last 28% and 28 seconds takes us through pastures. This, the single biggest use of land, is mostly used for feeding and rearing cows and sheep. In all, at a time when more than 1 in 10 British species are at risk of extinction, do we need to rethink this mix of lands we have and how we use them?
Okay, right. Let me just switch back all the sound stuff in case I forget. Okay, so as you can see, and you should watch, check out Friends of the Earth if you want to see the full video, because there's a bit of stuff that goes around there as well. And Friends of the Earth is a brilliant organisation. But yeah, so that video gives you a good summary of what's going on with all the land in the UK. Now, people think of the UK as an area, as a part of the world that's quite well farmed, in that the soil is generally looked after quite well, and farmers are generally quite good kind of tenants of the land, quite good stewards of the land. That's a better word for it. But still, who here was surprised about how much of the UK is pasture? Who was surprised by that, and who kind of expected that? What do you think? I'm interested to know, like, what level of how much you expected it to be like that. Because for me it was really baffling, and I was also really baffled at how much peat bog there was. I mean, I know that peat bog is really important, and it's one of the things that isn't very glamorous. People don't talk about how important it is, but and Posey expects this because surrounded by fields. Otaku Kiri expected it, to be honest. Okay, so Kieran is asking, can all that pasture be used for plants though? Right, brilliant question, and this is taking me on to exactly what I wanted to talk to you about next. So let's go back past the salmon cannon and over to these cows. Okay, wait, I'm just gonna lose the old salmon cannon. Okay, so These, so these cows are busy eating some delicious grass, grazing on the old pasture. Do you guys know if you were to ride a cow, which part of the cow should you sit on? Really crucial bit of knowledge. Front, exactly. Front, the shoulders, the head. Oh, you guys are so good. Maybe because I said that in another lesson. Yeah, if you ride a cow, you have to sit here on top of the front legs, because that's the only place that it can support your weight. So if you do find yourself riding a cow and you are kind of in a horse-like position, just shuffle your way forwards for the cow, and it'll really appreciate that. Anyway, so cows. So one of the things that you will often hear people say, and especially people who are connected to farming, is, well, this land is only good enough, or it's only suitable for cows or for sheep or for animals, right? This is something you'll hear quite a lot. One of the big questions all of us should be asking here is that a good argument for meaning that it should be used for cows or sheep or for animal farming? Is the fact that it can only be used for animal farming a good argument that it should be used for animal farming? What do you guys think? It's Maggie is asking, does this only apply to the UK, or is it similar in other countries like the US, Australia, etc.? So we have this kind of learning is really applicable to other countries. In fact, Australia and America have a much bigger problem with factory farming of cows, which means that cows in America and Australia are significantly worse even than they are in Britain. And they're pretty bad in Britain for the land, which is what I'm going to, I say they're pretty bad for the land. They can be good at looking after the quality of the soil, but farming them for the sake of food is... So this is what I'm wondering what you guys are going to think. If we can only use the land for farming cows and sheep, then or animals, then does that mean we should? Okay, so Angel is saying no, surely there's another use for the land. Kieran is saying surely we can transform the land. We've done it before, we can do it again. Again, out of the freezer saying if there's no other way for them to make money, then maybe it's valid. And that's a really interesting point that I am really strong believer, because at the moment, so much of farming is funded by government subsidies and controlled by where the government put their money. And so it should be the system should be set up in such a way that if you're a farmer, then the most sensible thing for you to do financially should also be the most sensible thing environmentally. And until the system is like that, the system's broken, basically. Anyway, the key thing is, if I would think I asked this on a previous live, and so I think everyone already knows that the amount of food wasted in the world, what percentage of food is wasted? Let's just see if everyone remembers. So the food wasted in the world is about 45%. Max is saying 30. Exactly, it's about a third. About a third of all the food in the world is wasted. And so the idea that all land that can be farmed should be farmed is absurd, because we don't need to be farming this much land. So that's one point. We don't need to be farming this much land. Now, so someone said something about surely we could use the land for something else. Here's the big question from me. What might be a better use of this land? What are some things that this land could be used for? And does anyone know what most of this land in the UK was before? And it's often a similar story in places like Australia, New Zealand and America, although it'll have its own local twist. But what was this land in the UK? Forest, trees, exactly, and maybe even peat bogs. So about 60% of the whole of the UK, we think, used to be forest. About 60% of the UK was forest. Now, nowadays the UK is more like 14% forest. And so it's shrunk down significantly. Now, if we returned a lot of this land to its natural state of being a forest, then that would not only be a huge boost for absorbing loads of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, because that would get locked in with the trees, but also, what other benefits would it have if we returned all of this land to forest? And meanwhile, while I'm waiting for people to say what other benefit it might have if we return this land to forest, I'm going to just give that guy a top hat because that's what people want, apparently. I do like putting top hats on things, making them smart. Yes, said the cow. Okay, so Nidex is saying cleaner air. Phoebe is saying maybe more chicken nuggets. Mate, you're not going to get more chicken nuggets out of having more forests. Jeff is saying more happiness. Maddie's saying what a smart and sophisticated cow, and I completely agree with that. Okay, Angel is saying more oxygen and more enriched biodiversity. So this is one of the key things, is that it's not always the case, because there are some parts of the UK that actually the most biodiversity they can have, and biodiversity, by the way, means like lots of different animals and plants, and if you have lots of different animals and plants, a healthy ecosystem stores a huge amount of carbon. Unhealthy ecosystems release carbon, healthy ones lock it up. So if you, sometimes in the UK, pasture is actually the most biodiverse, although it's, it doesn't, when it looks really plain like this, that's normally not right. It should be covered in wildflowers and little shrubs and stuff like that. That's a biodiverse pasture. But normally, the most biodiversity that you can have in the UK is when it is returned to forest. Now, if you look at other countries, it might not be forest. It might be like a wild scrubland. It might be like a wild bit of bush, if you're talking about Australia or New Zealand. In the United States of America, it might be like a marshland, for example, that has been drained to have cows on it. The original natural state of things is almost always the healthiest thing for the land. Now, we are kind of drifting a lot away from, well, I would say not drifting away, but we're kind of going around this question of should we all be vegan? Now, I know that I've kind of talked a lot about how important it is that we about how land is used very inefficiently to make food. Now, just to quickly go back to that, as we saw before, 80% of our farmland is used to make about 20% of our food. 20% of our farmland is used to make about 80% of our food. Now, if we were, we're going to talk about whether we should or not in a moment, but if we were all to switch to only eating crops and eating less animals, or eating less animal products, then why would that be a good thing? And can anyone think of any reasons why any counter arguments for why it would be a good thing? Okay, so Lisa is talking about humans are omnivores, and so we've evolved to eat lots of different things, and so we need iron in our diet, which is more obtainable from meat than it is from plants, which is true. And so often people on strictly vegan diets, and especially women will go through periods where they're struggling for iron, will eat high iron plant-based foods. But it's true that iron is more available from animal products, and there are other things that are more available from animal products because we evolved to eat a mixture of things in our diet. Okay, so quite a few people are saying that we could make way more food than we needed if everyone was vegan, because we could start to free up loads of this land, which is the 80% land used for animals, and rather than using it for food, we could return most of it to biodiversity. We could return most of it to nature. And then by only increasing the amount of land we used for crops by a small amount, we could easily then feed the whole world and a bit more. So if we increase the amount of land for crops by just a little bit more, then we can easily not make 80% of the food we need, but make 100% of the food we need. So the other thing that's very important is that a huge amount of the land that is used, this argument. Okay, right, let's take a step back. I'm going to just move away from this area because it's getting so much stuff written down there. So, if one of the key ideas as well is that animals that we farm need to eat a huge amount of vegetation, and so not only are we freeing up land because we're taking away land that animals are grazing on and so on, but we're also freeing up land that's currently being used to grow food for animals. And one of the biggest factors there is not cows, but chickens. So chickens feed on an enormous quantity of things like soy. Why is it so problematic that chickens are feeding on enormous quantities of soy? Where does the soy come from? So Kieran is saying that he likes that plant-based seems more viable and realistic. Posey Joe's saying I think it should be more of a chicken nugget land. Have you had the I've had some really good vegan chicken nuggets. Okay, so I could see the discussion going on in the chat about how more plant-based is better, and so this is exactly what I'm about to talk about in the next bit. Okay, so soy. Okay, so exactly, soy, which is used to feed chickens, is grown in tropical regions, and so it's one of the primary things deforesting, like the Amazon rainforest, for example, and the Indonesian rainforest, and these areas are being these brilliantly biodiverse areas that are so important for life on Earth, not just for all the nature that they contain, but also they're literally controlling the weather rainforests. And when they disappear, our weather is going to go even more nuts. But the farming of things like soy is destroying the rainforest as well, and that's what's happening in order to continue creating chicken. Anyway, so now let's talk about like should we should we all be vegan? So obviously we've talked about how having a more plant-based diet is much better for the planet, and that is very, very clear. That if you reduce your amount of animal products, then that is generally a very good thing for the planet. There are little bits of counter arguments because there are areas where farmers will say, well, actually, if you have cows on the land, they help to look after the land. But the key idea is this: animals in general may play a role in maintaining the land, but as long as people are buying meat or buying animal products, then there will always be a financial incentive for farmers and so on to get loads and loads more animals until the land is full of animals and it's being used to create animal products as quickly as possible. And as soon as that happens, the environmental benefits of having these animals on the land are just like completely nullified. And so it's no way near, whilst there are arguments for saying it can be okay to have animals on the land sometimes, often they're not good. They're not good arguments when you start scaling things up to giant production projects. Anyway, right, so let's talk about this crow. So has anyone ever heard of the crow vending machine? Quick aside, since we've been cracking on with veganism, I know we're about to finish, but I'm just going to do a really quick aside on the crow vending machine. So here's the crow with a £1 coin in its mouth. Has anyone ever seen a crow carrying any money? Does anyone not know what a crow is? Crows are such intelligent birds. Kieran is saying that crop rotation is a good way to maintain the land, and so the argument that you need animals to maintain it isn't very strong. And that's right, yes. Although certain animals can do a really good job of aiding crop rotation, it's just if they're kind of involved in the rotation not as a product of the farm, but as a service of the farm. So instead of them being there to be eaten, they're just being there to look after the land. That can actually be a good argument sometimes. And it's important to understand all the sides of the argument, because otherwise people stop understanding one another and then they start arguing. And actually, when you get down to the science of it, it's all very, very clear that we should all be more vegan. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. So yeah, this is a crow, and Maddie's saying that they once saw someone tried to tame a crow. A crow is this big black bird that appears in the UK, and it's super smart. They're so smart, and some days they'll all like meet up in a tree together in the morning, and they'll all like chat to one another, and they'll be this like really noisy tree. Anyway, I just showed you this because someone once built a crow vending machine, which I'll talk about in another live. But someone once built a vending machine for crows where they basically delivered coins to the machine and it gave them nuts, which is so genius because they're so intelligent and they will just scour the land for coins and bring them in. Anyway, the reason I wanted to show you this is because I wanted to talk to you about an idea called voting with your wallet. What does it mean to vote with your wallet? Who has heard this phrase before? Vote with your wallet. Oh, they didn't manage to tame the crow because it bit their finger. That's sad. I mean, crows are super smart. The crow probably thought it was trying to tame your friend, to be honest. Max is saying that in Norwegian supermarkets, meat is essentially subsidised to keep farmers farming it, which is kind of mad. I don't know much about that. Okay, so exactly, really good answer here. Izzy Rose is saying voting with your wallet is about buying sustainable products. Mears is saying it's about putting your money into things that you should support. Okay, so buy things to push change, e.g. buying vegan food supports the vegan industry. Exactly, Japan Maple. Right, okay, so one of the very important things that you can do in life to change the world for the better is if you don't want to go fully vegan for whatever reason, the more you try to be vegan, by ensuring that you're kind of shopping in a vegan way and choosing vegan choices at restaurants and so on, the more the world will change anyway. Not just because you'll kind of be emanating this aura of of trying to do it, and doing it for really positive reasons. And there's a real kind of sense in the world of people being annoyed with people being vegan because vegan people are often thought to be, you know, there's like this endless meme about vegan people being really annoying and always talking about how they're vegan. The thing is, like, eating more plant-based is just about trying to protect the future for everyone so that we can actually live on a habitable planet. So as long as you always talk about it in a friendly way, I think it's great. And so, yeah, being more vegan is a very good thing. And to do that, it's really good to vote with your wallet, which means buy vegan things whenever you have the option to do so. Because at the moment, it's, you know, the world is shifting. We're in this amazing time when we can feel it like moving underneath us. In the 20 years ago, like, people just it was so much less normal to have vegetarian and vegan options, and now it's becoming the norm. At Cambridge University, which is where I worked with the team there on the No Beef campaign that I built to try and reduce consumption of beef, and they're replacing all of the things that used to be beef with things that are plant-based, and they're putting them and they're making them so delicious that people are just eating those instead, and they're just giving up on all the other meat options. It's amazing how, like, when people start to make small choices and start to move in the right direction, it becomes a cascade and a waterfall, and things start to change for the better. Because even though animal products things might often seem cheap, you should think about the future cost. What do I mean about the future cost? So even if it seems cheap in terms of money, why might it be expensive to buy animal products all the time in the long term? So Lisa's saying, what's wrong with being vegetarian though? Because cows, goats, etc. are still needing to be milked. So that's not actually true. Cows and goats are milked because they're made to go through repeated pregnancies so that they constantly need to produce milk. You know, normally mammals only produce milk when they've just had babies to feed their young, and so these dairy cows are made repeatedly pregnant. And also it feeds into the beef industry because those repeated pregnancies are creating animals that are then farmed for their meat. So again, like, even if you don't want to kind of even if you want to be vegetarian and you still want to eat milk and things like that, it's also an important thing to consider that every time you choose to have a vegan milk instead, like an oat milk or something, you're significantly helping the planet. And the other thing with chickens and eggs is that even though so many eggs say that they're free range, they're actually, like, free range often means that a single chicken, if this is your chicken here, free range often means that the chicken will have this much space. That's often the definition of free range is usually about that. And that's per chicken. So there'll be loads and loads of chickens in this barn and they'll call it free range. Anyway, I should finish soon because this has been a huge topic. So people are starting to ask me if I'm vegan. Wait, I'll answer that in 1 second. Okay, last thing I wanted to show you is this. So this is called the Impossible Burger, which is a entirely plant-based kind of meat substitute. So this is a cool thing, and I think it's great that these things are being developed. But the thing that everyone should remember is that also the old wisdom still holds, that processed food is not great. Processed food is generally bad, whether it's meat or whether it's vegetables. So even though the Impossible Burger is quite delicious and it's way better to eat an Impossible Burger than a normal burger, you should also consider that the less processed food you eat, the healthier you'll be, which is good because we like being healthy. Anyway, right, I'm going to finish there because I have gone on for ages. I'm not going to talk about We Are the Asteroid this time. Instead, I'm just going to show you what is coming up next. So this is what is coming up over the next few days. Tomorrow, Hannah and I are going to do a collab on Which Continents Don't Exist Yet. So if you've never seen Hannah before, then come along to that and you can meet her there. But yeah, there's more going on beyond Wednesday, but I've only copied Wednesday in so far. If you haven't already, then follow us on social media at Aim High Live, and do tell your friends that we are doing this and that it is free and good and nice. And check out the rest of the schedule on the calendar, which is there, aimhigh.co. If you can't read it, it's just aimhigh.co. And if you haven't already, fill out the little survey beneath the live on our website, because that is so helpful so that we can learn how to do this better. Thanks all for coming. I will see you. Oh wait. Okay. I'm going to say goodbye so that people can start to go. But also, I'm just going to very quickly look at what Kieran said. Do other plant-based milks hold the same nutritional value as pasteurized milk? This might help me to argue against my brother's parents. Okay, so it's often like different nutritional values, so they'll have different good things in them. So generally, plant fats are much healthier than animal fats as a general rule, and so often the plant-based milks are better in that sense, but then they might have less of other things. They might have slightly less protein in them, for example, but it's normally like quite negligible, that. But they'll have a different nutritional value. That's the key idea, is that it'll be actually different things that you're taking on. But as long as you have a balanced diet, then which you can easily achieve staying away from animals a lot, then then that's good. And also, I never answer the question of whether I'm vegan. No, I'm about, like, I try to be vegan as much as I can, but I'm basically doing what I'm talking about here, in that I try to avoid animal products, and I make those kinds of choices in, like, whenever I like go to the supermarket or whenever I like go out and buy food, and I try to move in that direction as much as I can. But I know that I feel like I should be vegan because I feel like I know that it's the better thing to do in many ways, and I haven't quite got there yet. And I think I actually think that's kind of a bit of a failing for me, because I feel like I'm understanding it, and I'm not, and I'm kind of, my actions are slightly lagging behind it. But I basically do it as much as I can, but every now and then I eat some cheese because it's delicious. Anyway, for those of you who want to check out the no beef thing, some people have been mentioning it in the chat. The website is zerobeef.com, which I just sent the link to there if you want to try it out. Anyway, thanks Japan Maple, that's kind of you to say. I shall see you guys tomorrow morning for Which Continents Don't Exist. Farewell all, bye bye.